Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's great because we got to do a rewatch of the Penn State game, and for the first time in several weeks, it was a game I did not mind watching for a second time. So that was a really fun, refreshing change of pace.
It was nice to see things that didn't involve Iowa, for instance. That's always a pleasant experience.
Yes, that was no Iowa, a competitive game that was interesting beyond about the 7-minute mark of the first quarter. It was like, oh, this is good. We should do this more. We should watch more interesting football games and fewer, 63-6 kind of games. So let's do that. I'm sure that's going to happen this week, so it'll be great.
Yeah, yes. Plus, throughout this entire Penn State game, I bet there's a JT Tuimoloau play coming here, and boom, there it was. So yes, this is our rewatch. We'll each go over five things or so of what we saw, caught, learned, had reestablished as we rewatched the television broadcast. Tom, I will give you honors.
All right. Well, and this is something that I know people talked about a bunch, and we talked about some on the post-game show, but that I just hadn't, when I'm down on the field, I'm not rewatching things. I'm not necessarily thinking about patterns or anything like that. I couldn't help but notice rewatching a bunch of the drives where there were so many drives where Ohio State had 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, and just constantly throwing short of the sticks on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5. It was the first time they were in the red zone, it was run, delay of game, and then a pass, I think to Cade Stover, that was 8-10 yards short of the sticks. Next drive, it's 3rd and 6. There's a swing pass to probably Emeka Egbuka, tackled for a loss. No, never, the ball never got anywhere near the sticks. The not on the drive where they missed the field goal, but the second time they kicked a field goal, they never threw the ball even close to the sticks. And CJ Stroud was under pressure on that 3rd down one, so okay, you can give him a little grace on that. But the ball never got close to the sticks. And Ryan Day explained on Tuesday when we got the chance to talk to him and explained after the game as well about, sideline to sideline and you want to stretch them horizontally and all that kind of stuff. But it seems like, you gotta give your players a chance to get the ball there. Like it's like on 4th and goal, throwing the ball short of the goal line. Like, you need them to catch it, and then you need them to not get tackled, and you need them to make another play, potentially get in. Like there's still a lot of field. This was not even 4th and goal from the 2. This was, 3rd and 6 from the 30. Like there's a lot of field out there. Like go explore that.
And how many times have we seen throughout the season where it's like 3rd and 10 and they throw like a 12-yard deep out, and it's like boom, another first down, easy peasy. Even there was a 3rd and 10 late in this one that ended up being a slant to Marvin Harrison to kind of seal the game a little bit, and that was. Said it was a slant where he had to pick up the last 5 yards running. And, the way the defense was set up, he was able to do that. But, yeah, it is interesting where, I think they really, really respected the Penn State secondary. And maybe that's a lot of reason why the middle is so open is because there's so much gravity outside. And then they could just go ahead and go over the middle for some of those things. Tom, my first one here is just it was a topic of the day with Ryan Day about the tendencies and running every time out of pistol and running every time from under center. So I went through and this morning when I was doing my rewatch, I think it was the second time I had to rewatch to go back and chart actually the first time I charted what they did. Then the second time, stupidly, because I didn't do it the first time, I charted how much they got. It's like, what? Just write it all down as you're watching it the first time. So that's just a tip for everybody out there. But I had them for four formations, 4 pistol plays. Ryan Day said 5. I think 1 may have been a penalty, so I only wrote down 4. And then there was 8 under center, and all of those were runs. And from shotgun, they ran the ball. See if this sounds like anything, Tom. They ran the ball 7 times and they threw it 39.
I'm picking up some kinds of patterns there, and I found it very interesting on Tuesday. Ryan Day was a little defensive. Like Bill Landis was, asking him some questions and asking some follow-ups to try and get some clarifications on stuff. And Day seemed very much like, no, it's not, is that a tip-off? Is that something that you need to get away from? It's like, no, it wasn't the formations that were causing the issues. And it's like, I don't know that I completely agree with that. And I will fully admit Ryan Day knows more football than I do. But it seems like if you are telling the opposing team with a high degree of certainty that you're going to be doing a certain, at least, you're narrowing the likely, outcomes of the player, the your likely methods on that play by half. You're either telling them pass or run with a pretty high degree of likelihood. That seems like that's going to hurt you. I mean, that seems like that's going to help the defense narrow down what you're going to try and do and be able to attack it better. And I find that, sometimes coaches say stuff that they don't really believe, and he's setting this up to break all sorts of tendencies against Michigan or whatever. Like, yeah, okay, fine, that's fine. And he talked about the fact that they were in pistol against Iowa and had a long touchdown because they broke a tendency there against Iowa. So, okay, maybe you're really just setting it up to break those tendencies later in a moment when you really need them. But if he really thinks that that's not at all a concern, or that's not all, I mean, you do self-scout, Tony. You have QC guys to self-scout you so that you don't do this. So I don't think you can possibly really believe that there's no benefit at all to the defense to have tendencies that were extremely one way or the other. Because he defended it as, well, we were successful, had defined it as successful runs on 4 of the 5 plays out of the pistols. Like, okay, like sometimes you have better football players and you can do it even when they're, could they have been more successful plays in a different way? If one more of those gets stopped, does that completely blow up the theory? It is a process versus results conversation, and the results were fine, at least in that one narrow area. But I do have some questions about the process, assuming he really does believe what he said on Tuesday.
Well, 2 things to that, and I'm trying to remember what my first point was about something you said at the start, but just just looking at some of the numbers here, Tom. The pistol, and again, I have four pistol runs written down here: a 5-yarder, an 8-yarder, a 3-yard loss, and a 9-yarder. And Day's contention was, who cares if there's a tendency here, as long as is it working? It's kind of reminded me, as I say, is it's working, reminds me of Luke Fickell in 2013 after the Michigan game. Did we win? Did we win? But I think with the pistol, I don't know that 4 can really bring about a tendency. You did it every time, 4 or 5 times. I don't think that's really much of a concern, and it was working. So, and we know they have thrown out of that, and I don't know that it really impacted this game. Sometimes the tendencies aren't impacted until the next game, where you haven't changed anything and teams have gotten a week to scout you out. The last couple of runs from under center were 7 yards, a loss of 2, like in the final 2 minutes, an 11-yarder and an 8-yarder. So they started to pick up steam. The last run out of the shotgun was a 41-yarder. But I think one of the things that has me ironically believing Ryan Day in this about the tendencies and how it's not an issue with the tendencies is it's because it was just as bad in shotgun when they were only running the ball 7 out of 46 times, because until that 41-yarder, they had run the ball 6 times out of shotgun for 13 yards. So it's like shotgun is just as bad as everything else. So there's no tendency there. I think there's a lot of evidence, as we saw on a rewatch, there's a lot of evidence that the offensive line wasn't playing as well as they could have. Matt Jones did not have a very good game. A few weeks back, Justin Fry said something about how, he needs to get used to playing hurt, that sort of thing. Like this time of year, you're nobody is 100%, and you have to be able to deal with that and practice through that. And I don't know how healthy he is right now, but this was not his best game. And so things like that have impacted the offense or the running game as a whole. I did the first note that I have written here though, Tom. It was Buckeyes go under center and Penn State immediately goes cover 0 to expect, like, they're bringing everybody to stop the run. Like, there was no concern about safety help there.
Yeah, and when you go cover zero, we saw what happened. Ohio State went cover zero at one point, and that was on the Parker Washington long touchdown play, where you had, they had two guys there. They collided. It was J.K. Johnson and Tanner McAllister, I believe. But they were in cover zero. The safeties were up, and there was no one back there. And so that's an opportunity. If you are drawing teams into playing cover zero and you know that that's a possibility, you take advantage of it. And maybe this is we're having two separate conversations thing with the Ryan Day thing, because, if Ryan Day means that wasn't the core reason why we didn't run the ball well in X formation, like, okay, that's one conversation. That doesn't have an impact is a different conversation. And that just seems like flatly like wrong to me. And, if you want to say there were other issues, like, yeah, agreed, there were other issues. The offensive line did not have a great game. The turf was not it didn't look like they were totally comfortable on that turf either. That was kind of short grass. It was kind of slippery. It was frost on the grass in the morning, so it's wet. It was just, and you saw there was one run where Travion Henderson tried to cut back, and it looked like his right ankle just kind of fell out from under him. Watching it live, I thought he tripped over Paris Johnson's ankle. In reality, his foot came out from under him. So, there's a bunch of that kind of stuff. And, this will transition a little bit into my next one, which is, Tony, tell me if I'm crazy, but the best Ohio State running game comes with Mayan Williams for quarters 1 through about 2.5 or 3. And then Travion Henderson using his speed against a much more run-down, tired opposing defense, where all of a sudden, you can break one because they're just a step slow to the hole or whatever. That feels like that's the most effective Ohio State run game, because there were a couple times where Travion Henderson sometimes isn't willing to take the 2 or 3 yard gain, which is not sexy. But it's like, sometimes if it's 1st and 10, sometimes you just got to accept the fact that it's going to be 2nd and 8 and not try and turn it into, well, this is going to somehow, and then a miracle happened and now it's a 23-yard run. Like, because then sometimes it turns into 2nd and 12, and that's, you don't want 2nd and 12. So sometimes you got to be just willing to just take the 2 yards and try and turn the 2 into 3 and not try and turn the 2 into 20. And that's something. He's still a relatively young back and all that. And, a healthy Mayan Williams for the first 3 quarters or first 2.5 quarters is not, in fact, an option right now. So this is all a little bit of a moot point. But watching that run game, it just feels like early in the game, Mayan Williams is much more willing to just sort of stick his face in there and push the pile and, turn a 2-yard run into a 5-yard run. And that's kind of what they need, I think, more than anything else. They don't need to hit home runs on the ground. They just need to keep, stay on schedule.
Well, and Ryan Day wants the 3-yard run to become a 5-yard run and so on. What he should also emphasize is, I want that negative 3-yard run to become a 2-yard run. I want that negative 2-yard run to become a 0-yard run. Just don't lose this any yards and make it more difficult for the offense. Just, if you can't get anything, just don't lose. First do no harm, that sort of thing, and get what you can. And yeah, I like that idea of Mayan Williams softening them up, and then you got Travion Henderson coming in there. And I won't compare it to J.K. Dobbins and Master Teague in 2019.
We've been doing this a while, but yes.
Yeah. All right. My next one, Tom, is, let's discuss something that Ryan Day talked about, which was the false starts down in the red zone. I think on the 2-point conversions, where Cade Stover would jump because the nose tackle would jump because Matt Jones would tap Luke Whippler on the leg because they had to do a silent count and on the road. And it's like, all of these little steps leads to poor Cade Stover, who, has Ryan Day really explained it really, really well. Like, this is a loud environment, so you're going on a silent snap, and he's playing tight end. He's on a wing, and he's not on the line, so he can't see the ball. He's like trying to find the ball. Say you're attached to like DeJuan Jones or Paris Johnson's hip. Imagine yourself there, and you're trying to see when the ball is snapped without moving, and your head is like kind of torn between two masters of the guy across from you and the ball, and then you see a defender jump, and so you jump. And like, I didn't realize this rule until a few weeks ago. I saw it somewhere where if the defender jumps and then you jump, that's a false start unless the guy who jumped off sides is across from you. And if nobody across from the defender jumps and it's poor Kate Stover, that's a false start. Like, you can't allow yourself to be triggered by somebody on the other, somebody 3 or 4 spots gaps away from you. And, just, it's not like he was doing it on purpose. He was moving at movement. And I wasn't sure what was going on because you knew something was going on because there was always discussion and there was pointing. I thought maybe there was some clapping or some disconcerting signals in there, if you will. But that was just Ohio State putting Kate Stover in a tough position in a tough environment. And that was one of the things that Ryan Day said. It's like, that's one of the things that makes playing on the road and these kinds of games difficult. There are a lot of things. That's just one of them that you never think about.
Yeah, that's like a, those real elaborate contraptions where the ball falls down the thing. It's a something machine, Rube Goldberg. Yeah, Rube Goldberg machine. Yeah, where the ball falls down the thing, and then it makes the cat yells, and then that scares the bird, and then the bird flies, and then that knocks it. It's like, okay, you get the crowd noise, and then that makes you have to tap the guy and tap Luke Whippler on the leg, and then that makes the guy head across from him jump, and then that makes the guy 4 guys down from him on the line jump. It's this elaborate Rube Goldberg machine that ends with a false start a couple times. And, you are not the only one who was not aware of that rule until recently. Ryan Day was like getting clarification from the official on the field during the game, and then said, if I understood him correctly, said during the press conference, he didn't realize that was, that distinction was in that rule. I certainly didn't realize it. So that's, that's not just a Ryan Day and it's not just a you thing. I didn't realize it either, but yeah, I think after the game, I thought that was like mind-boggling that they had 2 false starts. Like, how could this possibly happen? That was when I was like, oh, okay, now that makes a lot more sense. That okay, that's what happens. And here's the good thing for Ohio State: you probably don't need to go on silent count again at any point for the rest of the season, because you're not, your remaining road games are Northwestern, where there's going to be 8,000 extremely wet Northwestern fans who are not going to raise a lot of ruckus. You go to Maryland, where it's going to be probably about 40% Ohio State fans, and it's not a very big stadium. And then you get a bunch of neutral site stuff after that, whether it's the Big Ten championship game or the college football playoff semifinal or the national championship game or wherever they end up playing in the postseason. You're not going to have 90% opposing fans, so you're probably not going to have that situation come up again. So that's one piece of good news for Ohio State. Another piece of good news for Ohio State, Tony, Denzel Burke. Denzel Burke had a pretty decent game, and there was one play in particular that really jumped out to me, because there were a couple. J.K. Johnson called for a pass interference at one point on a play where he really it looked like he just kind of panicked and just he was in okay position and just grabbed when he didn't really need to grab. And then there was one where Julian Fleming drew a pass interference call against a Penn State defensive back, where the guy kind of grabbed his arm and it was very obvious and it's away from his body. There was one where Denzel Burke, it was a 3rd and 6, and it's a long pass down the right-hand sideline, and Denzel Burke did this really nice job where he had his arm in a position where the other guy couldn't get his arm up, but he wasn't grabbing the arm. It was just his arm was blocking the other guy's arm from coming up, and it was doing it in a spot where it was, their bodies were very close together, and you couldn't really see it. And it was like the most effective version of the, grab the guy's left wrist, and then he can't get his hand up, and then he can't catch the ball, except he did it in a spot where you're not going to call that, because he's got his arms up like he's trying to catch the ball, but he's also blocked the receiver's arm. It was, there has been a lot of Denzel Burke angst in the Ohio State football zeitgeist this fall. That was a real veteran play. That's one where if it's a 5th-year guy, the announcers are talking about, whoa, what a savvy play by the crafty veteran. That's a 2nd-year guy who, has played a lot more football than a typical 2nd-year guy. He's played a lot more snaps than J.K. Johnson has, even though they're in the same class. But that was a really, really savvy veteran play. And honestly, I watched this without the volume on, so I don't even know if Joel Klatt talked about that or anything on the broadcast. But that really jumped out to me. That was a really smart play.
Yeah, he had a good game. J.K. Johnson, kind of a rough game. I think he's going to certainly learn from it. There will certainly be a lot of teach tape off of that, and he can bounce back from, like you said, there's a bit of panic on that pass interference and other plays as well. But he's a very confident guy, has grown more confident throughout the year, and has built upon the playing time that he's gotten. So I think this was a good experience for him. And like you said, this will be the last time they're in an environment like this year, although there are bigger games to come with split crowds, but certainly big time nerve-wracking environments. Let's stick with the secondary, Tom, because it is pretty entertaining watching Lathan Ransom run all over the place. And he can start out on the left side, and then the run is to the right side, and he will get to the line of scrimmage and be there as essentially a linebacker for this defense. And there's even one snap, it may have been more than one snap, but he is lined up at middle linebacker, and he's got Tommy Eichenberg on one side of him, and he's got Steel Chambers on the other side of him. And that's just, he's pointing out stuff, he's looking back and telling guys what to do, and it's like, you are the skinniest middle linebacker in Ohio State football history, but he is a sure tackler. He gives a sense of calm to the entire defense, and like Ronnie Hickman is the same way, but like Lathan Ransom he makes tackles. He doesn't get lost, I think is maybe the best way to put it. There was like a throwback to Brenton Strange that could have gone for big yards in the flats, but he went and stopped it for like a 2 or 3 yard gain because he watched it the entire time. He recognized it. He sees things as they're happening and knows where to be and gets there, and doesn't often get caught up, even when he's in the box trying to defend the run. So just it's fun just to rewatch him play and run around.
Yeah, he played well. I think Ronnie Hickman played pretty well. Tommy Eichenberg played pretty well. And, you always hear about baseball teams being strong up the middle. If you have a strong catcher and a strong shortstop and a strong center fielder, that means you're those 3 spots alone are going to be enough to give you a pretty solid defense overall. The interior defensive tackle spots have been pretty solid this year. But, I mean, Tommy Eichenberg has been incredible. And then Lathan Ransom and Ronnie Hickman at those 2 kind of adjuster and boundary safety bandit positions this year have been really, really good. And it feels like that is, that's certainly not all of why Ohio State's defense has been good this year, because JT Tuimoloau doesn't play in the middle, and he's pretty good. Had an okay day on Saturday, which we may not even talk about him on this one, but allow me to assure you that's just because we noticed all of those things on Saturday. Did not have to rewatch to go, hey, that JT Tuimoloau had an okay day. But yeah, the middle of the Ohio State defense has been very smart, and those are very solid and in the right place. And those are guys who, to your point, those are the guys who are getting other people lined up. The middle line, the Mike backer is the one who's setting the defense in some cases, and one of those safety spots is called the adjuster for a reason, Tony. And those have been really, really key roles. And Tommy Eichenberg has gotten plenty of credit for his play this year, and has shown up on the stat sheet plenty of times. But yeah, some of the safety play has been pretty good this year, and even Tanner McAllister. He had the one where Parker Washington scored the touchdown where he was, he and J.K. Johnson were in coverage, and that was 2 guys, banged into each other, and like that's one of those, like, what are you going to do? And then there was another Parker Washington where he made just a superhuman catch on Tanner McAllister on the right-hand sideline, which was just kind of like, yeah, man, I got nothing. Like, you could not have played that much better, and the guy just made the catch. Like, that's going to happen sometimes. But yeah, that for a safety-driven defense, the safeties have been pretty good, which is why the defense has been pretty good, I think. Let's see, my next one. Penn State did some interesting stuff on offense, where at some points they were spreading the receivers like sideline to sideline, like Tennessee does. Tennessee has made a little bit of a thing of that this year, where it's like the receivers are lined up outside the numbers. They're way out by the sidelines to really make you defend sideline to sideline, in the same way that Ryan Day was talking about using the swing passes to make teams run side to side. There's a lot of distance on a football field from one sideline to the other, and if they're making you defend every inch of it, that spreads you out a little bit more. And when they did that, that was somewhat effective. There was at one point there was a 3rd and 2 where they had the receivers split way out. I don't know if they were all the way out past the numbers, but they had trips left and one guy out to the right. And it was 3rd and 2, and it was going to be a Sean Clifford quarterback draw, and Ohio State called timeout just in time. But if they hadn't, they were going to get it, and they were possibly going to get a bunch if, the safeties, there was a safety there that was trying to get over. It was either McAllister or Hickman, but, was not going to get there in time to stop the first down and might have given up a longer run than that. So I looked at that and thought, that seems like something Michigan might steal. So Ohio State might want to try and figure out an answer for that so that they don't have J.J. McCarthy trying to run 70 yards on them or whatever on a quarterback draw. Related to that, though, Penn State, then, they're going sideline to sideline. They're running like a full house backfield or a wing tee. And though that seemed like that was successful for them when they had receivers out there to spread the defense. And when it was just, here's a bunch of beef and just here's, 9 offensive linemen and, that would be too many men on the field, but whatever. 3 running backs and a quarterback and 7 offensive linemen or 5 offensive linemen and a couple tight ends or whatever it was, all packed into a very narrow area. That almost never worked. Ohio State was really able to contain them there, where they stuffed them on a 3rd and 1 or a 4th. They stuffed them on a 4th and 1. I think that was the Tyleik Williams one. They tried to ram the ball in with Sean Clifford on 3rd and goal from the 1-foot line after that fumble right by the goal line. Didn't get in on that one. And then on 4th and 1, they did the same thing, and Tommy Eichenberg shot the gap and just couldn't get the ball carrier down. Jim Knowles talked about, just basically he just went in a little high and just not quite the right tackle. You got to go for the legs there. But, that was one where Penn State, when they didn't spread the field against Ohio State, had virtually no success running the ball. But when they spread it out of that same kind of formation, it seemed like they were pretty successful. So that seems like something that you might see other teams try to capitalize on later in the season.
Yeah, they have very athletic tight ends who were able to stay in 12 personnel for much of that game because those 2 guys could also be in that loaded backfield and either run block, could pull, could run routes. So it was interesting how they used that, and I would expect to see. I don't know that Michigan has that second tight end right now. They're trying to get them involved. The poor Tommy Eichenberg, because he had that missed tackle on the 4th and goal. He had another one on another 4th down that was on Sean Clifford that he got through and should have dropped Clifford for like a 2-yard loss. And had he made both of those plays with Gus Johnson calling the game, like everybody would know who Tommy Eichenberg is right now, even being overshadowed by JT Tuimoloau, to have a 4th down stop at I think the Penn State 30, basically. That was one of those. And then also a goal line stop on 4th down. Everybody would know Tommy Eichenberg's name. And just the fact that they have a linebacker now that gets through there and can make that, because we know he can make that. Just unfortunate for Ohio State that he didn't. But I'm happy for Tommy Eichenberg that he has enough credit built up to where he's not getting torn apart on Twitter right now, because he has so much credit built up with the fan base that nobody is saying he shouldn't be playing, he shouldn't be out there or anything like that. My next one, Tom, let's go with, how about Tyleik Williams? They had a really good series with the sack and then the stop on 4th down. Jim Knowles was asked about him on Tuesday, and he talked about how as he has practiced better and practiced more consistently, he's getting more time on the field, and you're seeing the play and the results of that practice. And I'm thinking that if the maturity is there, you're only going to see more practice and more better habits, rather than, see, if you'd only let me play, this is what I would do all the time. Because I think that's what he had last year. That was who Tyleik Williams was last year. Now he's being held to the fact that you have to practice better. You have to practice consistently. We don't care that you led the second in the team in tackles for losses and sacks last year. That doesn't mean anything if the rest of the habits aren't there, because we're going to reward habits. And so I think he's finally caught on to that, and that is making that part of his daily routine. And if he continues to, right now would be a really good time for him to just start doing this and become this dominating guy, because he's going to have some opportunities the next few weeks. And then as you get into Michigan, if he can be feeling his oats with everybody else, and Jerron Cage had some nice moments in this one as well, but good game, good spots by Tyleik Williams in this one.
Yeah, he was someone who you've seen him flash before. You saw him flash last year against Akron, and then everyone spent the rest of the year saying, why aren't we seeing Tyleik Williams anymore? And, the answer was maturity, off-field stuff, not consistent enough to earn that spot. And I think we came into this year thinking, okay, this is going to be the year that Tyleik Williams really takes a jump. He's going to be the second-year interior guy who really takes a jump this year. And then it was like, nope, that's my call. Tyleik Williams is still kind of working his way into the field. And, the talent's there, and the explosiveness is there, and that they see that, and it's just a matter of when are they going to be ready for him to take that next step. And he is someone who, when you're playing a Michigan, you're going to need to rotate those defensive linemen, because that is a tough offensive line that Michigan has. And if you have another big body you can throw in the middle of that defensive line, that can only help. You get him, you get Jerron Cage, you get Mike Hall, you get, who am I forgetting? I mean, Ty Hamilton. Did I say Teron Vincent? I don't think I said Teron Vincent yet. I mean, if you can go 4, 5, 6 deep on the interior of that defensive line, that presents much more of a challenge to the opposing offense, and also makes it much less likely that they're going to be able to wear you down as much over the course of a game. And that's something that is, if Tyleik Williams can just play 10 or 15 snaps in that game, that might be big. And can you put him in goal line situations where maybe he can shoot the gap and get someone in the backfield? That would be big. They don't need him to play 40 snaps, and I don't think he's probably ready to play 40 snaps, but if they can just get 15 snaps a game out of him, that would probably be a big win for Ohio State for the rest of this year. My last one, there was one right before the half, and this was like the play before C.J. Stroud had that long 3rd and 1,000,000 run where he didn't get a first down, but almost got got close enough that they could go for it on 4th down. Abdul Carter shot through I just saw someone blitzing, but from my vantage point on the field, I saw someone just having a clean run at C.J. Stroud, and C.J. Stroud, very clearly, you could see the thought bubble going, oh crap, because he had the ball in his left hand, which is rather famously not the hand he throws it with, and just trying to scramble around to get free. And I couldn't figure out how, where did this guy come from? How did he get such a clean run at C.J. Stroud? And then when you watch it, it looked like Donovan Jackson got landed on by the defensive end. Like it was like Paris Johnson either pancaked the guy or the guy slipped or something. And he took out Donovan Jackson's leg. And then Donovan Jackson's down on the ground. Paris Johnson is engaged with his guy. And all of a sudden there's a free rush lane for Abdul Carter to come rush and take down C.J. Stroud. My initial thought was, I wonder if this was something like the Iowa play where they got the strip sack, where it was, a stunt or something like that, and or they're playing a game up front. No, in fact, it was just sometimes it's bad luck. Sometimes you get cut block as an offensive lineman, not very often, but apparently at least sometimes. And a revolutionary new technique in pass rushing, cut blocking the offensive lineman.
Paris Johnson is engaged with a defender and cut blocks Donovan Jackson. Who should be penalized for that? 15 yards, offsetting penalties, do-over, that sort of thing. There are several times with the offensive line where a lineman would try to have you block one guy, you go get another guy in the second level, but they wouldn't stay with that first block long enough, and that first block would blow up the run. And I think before they get worry about the second level, take care of the first level and make sure that there's a second level to get to. Maybe just be a little bit more patient. You want the running backs to be patient. I think the line could have been more patient in this one. My last one, other than the 47 little tiny notes and other things that I have here, Tom, let's talk about which one to go with. How about tempo as a change-up? Ryan Day has said, that tempo is good, up-tempo is good, but it's a lot like, and he didn't say this, but I'll say this, it's basically like batters timing up a fastball. If you don't change your speeds, doesn't matter that you throw 101, it's the 84-mile-an-hour changeup or just changing the speeds of your fastball that makes the fastball really effective, and that's what makes the up-tempo stuff effective in Ryan Day's mind. And we saw that with the long pass to Emeka Egbuka, the 42-yarder, and then the eventual touchdown, where Penn State had almost been lulled into a sense of, don't worry, there's no hurry. And then the fact that it rhymes, it just becomes this mantra. Don't worry, there's no hurry. And then eventually, boom, Ohio State hurries, and then it's like, uh-oh, now you're in trouble. and they caught him on that one, and they caught him on a couple of others. But you see that, and you're like, you should do more of that. But it's like, maybe it was effective this time because they hadn't done any of it and they waited the right time. I get into this tug of war with the criticism where it's like, why didn't you do that earlier? And it's like, well, maybe it worked because they didn't, that sort of thing. It's like, you don't really have the answer, but it's like, if this works so well, maybe you should try it more often. That's just a suggestion.
It does seem like something they could do a little bit more because, he was talking about going tempo, and I was thinking back, I had not rewatched the game by the time we were talking today on Tuesday, and I thought, I don't remember them using tempo very much. I mean, it really almost stood out to me that they didn't use tempo, because it seemed like something that they should have been using more. And yeah, when I went back and watched it, it was like, yeah, I mean, a couple times, but this is, he's a Chip Kelly guy. Chip Kelly used that blur offense where they would, snap the ball 10 seconds between plays, and that's something you've seen Tennessee use with great success this year, and it's not 3 times a game. You can use it. I think you can use a little more than they have used it and still have it be effective. You're actually going to see Northwestern run some tempo this weekend, which is wild to think about. A Pat Fitzgerald offense running tempo, and think about how fast that gets the punter out there and all that. But they have, and maybe they won't this week to try and control the clock more and keep the Ohio State offense off the field. But that is something they have tried to do a little bit this year, which is wildly uncharacteristic for Northwestern. But yeah, for Ohio State. You saw Michigan State use tempo against Michigan, and I swear we're not going to make every single show about what, the Ohio, previewing the Ohio State-Michigan game, but also kind of we are. So, that's something that you saw Michigan State use with some success against Michigan on Saturday, and that seems like something that is a good indication that Ohio State should probably consider doing that as well. I had a couple other things here, just a couple real quick ones. Actually, back-to-back plays. I mean, that I mentioned it before, but that long Stroud scramble, it was 3rd and a mile, and it was 3rd and 18 or something. And I remember him taking off and going, "Well, why are you doing that? You're not going to get it." But then he got enough that it got it to the plus 43-yard line, and then it was 22 seconds left in the half or something, and Ryan Day called timeout, and on 4th and 6 they went for it. That was, that ended up being. They didn't get any points out of that drive, and we'll get to why they didn't get any points out of that drive later. But, they didn't get points out of that drive, but that was maybe one of the biggest C.J. Stroud runs we've seen where you don't, it didn't even pick up a first down. It didn't score a touchdown. It didn't pick up a first down, but it changed the game, the fact that he was able to use his legs. And then, the fact that he was able to use his legs and have that whole, how often did they show the middle of that field being open? Well, if the middle of the field is open, now maybe C.J. Stroud can go pick up 6, 8, 10, 12 yards, and that, that may force defenses to defend things a little bit differently and not be able to, have one extra guy on the outside receivers. The other thing was just a couple plays later than that when CJ Stroud, when there are 6 seconds left in the first half, you cannot pump the ball and then think about something like, it wasn't even the sack. It was like, you have to, with 6 seconds left, you've got to know if the first guy isn't there, you have to throw it 5 feet over his head on a line out of bounds and get the field goal team out. Like that was one of those, like, if nothing's there, then nothing's there. And I frankly think Cade Stover probably was there if that was not his first read. That's a play where with 6 seconds left, if your first read is not there, you got to get rid of the ball and go kick the field goal. That I think was, that was a situation they have not been in a lot. But that was also, that was a mistake that is a little uncharacteristic for him.
Well, and Ryan Day said after the game that he thought that CJ knew to throw a fade in that situation, and he took blame for that. There was also, if they would have ran a slant behind that blitz, it's a touchdown. But that's a lot of recognition that has to happen while you've just spiked the ball and you have one play left and the game is on the line and there's a lot going on. A couple of others that I have, Replay missed a drop, a Marvin Harrison drop on 3rd down that kept a drive alive. Again, I'm going to harp on Instant Replay for not buzzing down and changing something. I will also harp on Replay for not buzzing down and checking the line of scrimmage on the throw from Sean Clifford to Theo Johnson. Watching it live in the press box, I thought it was okay. Watching it here, it was like, ooh, you might just want to replay that to make, because the rule is you have to be completely, like, there can't be any body part left, or there can be any body part left on the line, behind the line of scrimmage. It's once you're entirely passed, then it becomes an issue. And it was really, really close. And I'm surprised that, because I don't think replay is that quick. I've seen them work. I don't think they are able to review stuff, as there's also tempo going on. And Ohio State facing tempo defensively, I thought that was good for them. Face 80 plays to experience that. They're going to see more of that later on in the season. And I think that is all. And just watching Zach Harrison, he is so long. His reach is so long. Watching him track down Sean Clifford on one of those plays, it's like the cheetah and the lumbering gazelle. You know, like not the gazelles are lumbering, but this one was. And he's got this long reach. He can cover so much ground. It's really good to see him doing what he's doing after so many expectations on him. So, Tom, that is all I have. Anything else? Are you good?
Just that's how gazelles move when they're 60-year seniors playing behind that Penn State offensive line for the previous 5 years. Like, that's sorry. I was really fast when I was coming out of high school, but now no, much more catchable.
Yeah, those gazelles heading to the watering hole on the savannah. He's like, I'm getting too old for this, and then boom, here comes Zach Harrison. So that will then do it for this episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in. As always, please check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Think about becoming a member and then become a member. We would appreciate it. I'd love to see you there. Find us on YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. And I was going to say, hey, don't forget to check out the College Football Playoff show tonight, but we will probably, I don't know if we'll probably try to drop this before that show starts. But if not, Tom, just edit all of this out because you've got time for that.
The good news is it's still available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. You just can't watch it live, but you can still watch it recorded, which is, almost as good.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the rankings. I'll jump on the teleconference and then come back to Kevin and Tom to say to tell you the lies that the committee is saying. So I look forward to that. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.